It's time for Talking Cheese. No, we're going to do Talking Cheese. Yeah. I'm so giddy. I don't want JP to edit that beginning. I am so giddy at the fact that George Zimmerman is showing everybody that he's shitty. He has been arrested again. We will be talking later on the podcast with our co-host and Florida George Zimmerman specialist. Oops, sorry, Patty. Having a few problems here. Patty and I will discuss later George Zimmerman. Want to talk a little bit about President Barack Obama and a lot of heat over the Affordable Care Act, and apparently now we're talking about offering an opportunity for those who were thrown off their insurance because certain insurance plans don't meet up to the law that was written and passed. And there's just been this sort of Republican sort of scrutiny, and even Democrats with their political, minded asses, that says that Barack Obama was dishonest in regards to people who wanted to keep their health care plan. They could keep it regardless of the law. And that was a misunderstanding, okay? That was a miscommunication. That wasn't a good thing that happened. But, we're assuming that if you pass a law and the law doesn't grandfather certain things in, then a lot of shit has to be thrown out. For example, freeing the slaves. I mean, the idea that the law was written and certain slaves were in fact freed didn't mean that there didn't need to be further legislation for these people. I mean, then these people, we had to start realizing whether or not we should let them vote or not. Remember, we freed the slaves before we allowed blacks to vote. And further legislation has to be implemented. That's why we have amendments for our Constitution. And the idea that somehow this law for medical insurance should have just been totally flawless once it came into play is just ludicrous. I think that this racist response to the nation's first black president is deplorable. I think that it's just sad that America is so trapped in its racist crap that they can't capitalize on the fact that they could pivot themselves to a position where they don't have to act like this. You don't have to be prejudiced forever. Are we going to be prejudiced and racist forever and then say, well, it's not a racial issue? Well, you know what? Let me tell you something real quick. When Ronald Reagan was wrapped up into the Iran-Contra scandal, nobody questioned the fact that he was from America. When George Bush declared that the war was over and that all military action in that part of the country was over and flew in on a motherfucking fighter jet, no one questioned whether or not he was a Muslim. And this president is under so much scrutiny beyond the typical scrutiny that comes when you have a leadership role in this country. We also observing and recognizing in the anniversary time period in which John F. Kennedy was assassinated. People are saying that this place would be a better place if he wasn't taken out of that space when he was murdered and gunned down. I fear, a lot of radical thoughts and actions based on people who just don't want this president to succeed. The problem with this country is when you don't want an elected president to succeed, you're basically attacking the country. And I feel with the shutdown that they pulled off, with the harassment of women and gay Americans, the way the children are just sort of neglected in this country, the way we see these catastrophes and fly over and look at all this devastating stuff that took place in Illinois this week, and then just sort of ride off and go, let's take another $40 billion out of the SNAP program. It's just a blatant contradiction. Domestically, I think America needs a spanking. And, this president tried to deal with the banking. He tried to deal with emergency room medical care. He tried to deal with things that were really there. And now they're upset because, there's been, these drone attacks, right? That we're attacking foreign people on soil that want to bring this country to an end. Everybody's upset about the drone attacks. I am too. Here's my problem, though, and I'll end with this, okay? This shit is old, okay? These things are old. These discrepancies on power, the executive long arm of the law branch of our government, is not just happening because the Negro is in office, okay? And there was a role and an opening and an opportunity for this president to basically be faced with the same things that any other president has been faced with. It's just really weird that all this shit is clearly being able to be observed now that the Negro is in there. See, when the Negro wasn't there, it was hard to see what everybody is looking at now. See, the NSA is not 8 years old. The need for Medicare is not 8 years old. Medical Assistance Affordable Care Act, I'm sorry. It's not 8 years old. The need to make sure that women should be paid the same amount of money on a job is not 8 years old. The need to make sure that children all over our country are treated with decency and respect in regards to the adoption and foster care system and Head Start. These things are not 8 years old. They're older than that. And this president, I believe, has tried within the system as best as he can to do as good as what he had to work with. So get off his back and help out! That's all the time. I don't know what the fuck wrong with, I look at, one more thing. I look at George Zimmerman's fucking ass, and I think to myself, because I have a rocky past, and I think to myself, and I heard a friend of mine say it one time, everybody goes through a lot of bullshit. I think that when you defend it, though, is really when you're going to do what the mayor of Toronto is doing, If you go through some bullshit and you defend it, all you're going to come up with is more bullshit and you'll still be in it. Let me repeat that. If you go through bullshit and then you defend it, all you wind up with is more bullshit and you stay up in it. And so Barack is saying he's backing off the statement about, he shouldn't have said that they could keep their insurance. But I just feel as though he could have said something like, I assumed that, you guys would know that anything outside of the law would not be no longer respected in regards to these plans that are fucked up. That was the purpose of writing the law. That plans were already in place that were fucked up. And so we rewrote the law to help with that. I think there's a lot of money involved and I think people are upset. But I do believe Americans will accept it. I mean, if a country can accept the enslavement of a whole race of people for over 3,500 years, I'm sure they'll get through their little Affordable Care Act fears. If they could deal with slavery for all those years, getting through the Affordable Care Act fears, it'll all work out. And I think that's why the Republicans are scared. That we know how to adapt to stuff that works. We do. We know how to adapt to letting black folk and white folk marry. We know how to adapt to, can I sit up front on the bus, sir? We know how to adapt to making things better for entire races and classes of people in this country. We can work it out. Okay? Thanks a lot.